Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 23. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Edition. Dave, we have a jam-packed show today and a bit of unprecedented potential history when it comes to the Steelers game on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans.
A little bit of new news yesterday, or since we last got on the podcast, right? You know, about why don't you bring us everybody up to date on what the latest is on that game?
Yeah, unfortunately, no definitive answers, and I'm sure by now everyone knows the news and the story that broke on Tuesday morning that there was an outbreak of coronavirus in the Titans locker room. 3 players, including their starting long snapper, all 3 have been placed on the reserve COVID list. And 5 personnel members and also their outside linebackers coach tested positive prior to last Sunday's game against Minnesota. So at least 9 cases in the last few days in Tennessee. The Titans have decided to shut down their facility until at least Saturday while they do more testing, more contact tracing, and clean and disinfect their facility. And of course, that begs the question, if you're shut down until Saturday, the game's on Sunday at 1, do you have a game this weekend or not? The intent appears to be by the NFL that they're going to try to play this game as scheduled, with the potential of moving the game back to Monday. Even Tuesday seems like a possibility right now, but clearly the Titans are at a major disadvantage here, and we're just kind of all waiting to see what the NFL finally decides.
Yeah, and I don't know if we're going to get how much. I know there's been a couple reports already this morning. Let's see, Mark Maskey had one that I just retweeted that I can't find here all of a sudden here about, the NFL is still deliberating over whether Titans Steelers can be played Sunday as scheduled or perhaps moved to Monday night. Tuesday also has been mentioned as a possibility, but the league regards only one more positive test from the Titans as a signal the game can proceed. So it sounds like, and that uses that kind of dangerously right now, it sounds like the game's going to proceed. We just don't know exactly when. And, the question begs, the competitive advantage here, Mm-hmm. If the Titans facility is closed, I mean, that would obviously mean that they're probably not going to practice today. And if indeed it stays closed till Sunday, how much practice are they going to get in the meantime?
Yeah, it sounds like very little. Obviously, they're going to do some of their things remotely. Some of their preparation, film watching, and meetings can be done over Zoom calls, which were being done, earlier in the summer. But yeah, obviously, there's a clear competitive disadvantage there that's in favor of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So yeah, this is pretty wild. There is always the possibility, and we had outlined on Twitter this potential schedule change if the NFL decided, and it doesn't look likely right now, but if the NFL wanted to move this Week 4 game, they could, in theory, give the Steelers and Titans bye weeks Sunday, play this game on, what would it be, Week 7, I think it would be, because that's when the Titans have their scheduled bye, and then push Steelers-Ravens from Week 7 to Week 8, because both Baltimore and Pittsburgh have bye weeks during Week 8. So there is a relatively clean and easy option to move this game if you felt like you have to. But the NFL, of course, does not want to open Pandora's box and potentially start down that road, because if they start down that road, there's really no turning back.
Right, and, we're only, 3 weeks into the season right now, and, the potential of maybe something like this happening, it could create a snowball effect where you're moving stuff around, you get yourself in a situation where, even though they probably had the ability to push the Super Bowl back X amount of, I'm sure they have kind of thought about maybe potential plans here, but there's probably only so many mulligans, if you will, to mix in here. So I think obviously they don't want to rush to probably a decision on this. I think if anything, they're more than willing to maybe hopefully move this game to Tuesday at the latest, and see if they can get that in. But on top of that, teams were told to prepare or are told about the potential before the season start that there could be a week where they don't go through practice. Now on the flip side, how many padded practices do teams have during a week? Not that that's an excuse for this, but you would like to have some, even if it's walk through ability to be able to get together and do some of this stuff. And I really think that it puts the Titans, maybe not so much by losing one day, but if you got into maybe Thursday and Friday, and let's assume that the game stayed on for Sunday, I suppose that they could have Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and just not have kind of the off day there. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is if the Steelers are able to go on with business as planned, which they have been told to do with their schedule, I do think it gives the Steelers some sort of a competitive advantage here, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it feels like if they can't return until Saturday, they'll get a walkthrough and then play the game on Sunday, and that's it. And the walkthrough is not a whole lot. So, yeah, even from a padded practice standpoint, they're probably not doing a whole lot of that in season, and you only get so many of those during the season anyway. But just to have any sort of practice to be out there and be able to run plays and just play football instead of doing everything virtually and taking a week off from on-field work is a huge impact, obviously, as you said. So we'll see. Obviously, we'll keep you updated. And I know that a common response from fans, and I understand it, is that, well, you have expanded practice squads, you have the COVID list, these were all the mechanisms put in place. What's the big deal? For me, the issue is not the lack of availability of players for Tennessee. As far as we know right now, they only have 3 players who've tested positive. 1 was on the practice squad. It's about the lack of practice time, a lack of ability to get in the facility and work. So having an extra practice squad doesn't really matter if you can't practice in the first place. So that's where I think the big issue in terms of competitive imbalance is right now, is just the Titans cannot prepare for this game like they really need to.
Right, and I mean, and they've already lost the players to IR. Three players to IR now. One of them is a long snapper. People are kind of shrugging that off. That's a pretty big deal, man.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as long as that guy's been around in the league there. And the other one's a defensive tackle, and yeah, he's probably not playing all that great right now, but that's your starting defensive tackle there. So that's not the big crux here. Yeah, they lost the players, and those players are on IR, and that's a big enough deal in itself. But the big issue here is not being able to work, not being able to
right.
practice. That's the biggest deal. While the other team is, and I forget where I saw this somewhere on one of these talk shows, but if you're in the stadium and one set of the headsets go out, well, the other team has to turn off their headsets, right?
Sure.
To kind of equal that. What do you do in a situation like this? You can't can you make the other team not practice?
Mm-hmm.
And then you run into the issues of not maybe being physically ready by not having enough preparation from that standpoint. Are they going to get into the game, and because they did not have enough conditioning during the week, are we going to see people on the Titans pulling hamstring? You know what I'm saying? So it's just a snowball effect here. Is there a perfect answer to this? No. Should the Titans have to forfeit this game? No, I don't believe so. I don't believe that's the right answer either. Personally, I'm hoping that maybe something happens where the Titans can start getting in the facility. Maybe, it doesn't look like it's going to happen today. Maybe Thursday, but by some sorts, and maybe the game gets pushed back to Monday or whatever. And then the whole thing about the bye week is okay. The Steelers the Steelers technically would never really get a bye week, as far as that's concerned, because they're technically have been told to work this week and do business as usual. If you get another couple of days here and they say, well, that's it, we can't have the game, right. We're gonna do it on your normal bye week. Well then they've had all these weeks. Now I'm less concerned about the competitive advantage from a team losing a bye week than I am. And this might sound like I'm more pro Titans here, but I'm trying to look at this as objectively as possible here. I view the loss of the bye week as less of a competitive disadvantage for a team than is a team not being able to practice ahead of a game.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think that's the way the NFL is looking at it as well. I know I was thinking about that if they do move this game and the Steelers have a sudden week 4 bye week. Mike Tomlin's old saying of he's never made a bye week he didn't like. I think 2020 might change that. But it does seem like, and I was pretty confident they were going to move this game or do something, but it does seem like with more information coming out from the league and reports that they're going to keep this game week 4. It's just now a question of what day it's going to be played on. Is that going to be Sunday? My guess it'll be either Sunday or Monday is when they'll hold this game.
Yeah, and I don't, are we going to have a definitive answer by tonight?
That's a good question. Yeah, I have no idea when we're going to know for sure.
And if they move days, how does that affect the networks? You would think, they're probably waiting on this info as well too. And look, if you don't have this broadcast, then of course the league's losing money that way from not having the ad revenue and all. What a mess. Why does it seem like the Steelers are always the ones that are involved in stuff like this, right?
Right. Yeah, just bystanders here, and it's unfortunate, and just bigger picture, as you touched on, what if this starts happening around the league? Because there's a point where you just say this doesn't even feel like football, it doesn't seem fair, and what do you do from there? We saw with baseball, obviously, all the outbreaks and how that disrupted their schedule. At least baseball has the ability to schedule doubleheaders, something obviously that the NFL is not capable of doing. So, yeah, it's pretty wild, and we'll see what happens because we just don't know right now.
Right.
And by the way, speaking of Titans, usually Wednesday we have a beat writer on the show. That will not happen today. Instead, we'll have David Beauclair from Sports Illustrated talking Titans on Friday. So just a heads up there, we'll not be hearing from a beat writer today. We'll hear from them Friday, but it's probably good news because maybe we'll have some extra time to figure out what's going on with this Titans game Sunday.
Yeah, scheduled kind of conflicts made it where he wasn't able to join us earlier, this morning while we're recording this. It'll happen later on today, and maybe that's kind of okay. Maybe we'll learn a little bit more about whether or not when this game is actually going to be by then. So maybe it'll all work out for the good anyway, and we'll make sure to include that interview in the Friday podcast.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. All right, Dave, let's reset and go back to what we would have been talking about had all this news not kicked up yesterday with the Steelers coming off their Week 3 victory over the Houston Texans, moved to 3-0. Mike Tomlin had his press conference pushed back as well from noon to 6 p.m. yesterday, but he did speak ultimately to the media and went through the Steelers injury report. And I don't have it pulled up in front of me right now, but Derek Watt can basically be classified as out with that hamstring, which I think we had touched on during Monday's show. Deontay Johnson going through protocol, and safety Marcus Allen popped up too with a plantar fasciitis. And Tomlin said he's a little more likely to play than Watt, but is still considered doubtful for Sunday's assuming game against Tennessee.
Yeah, that just goes to show sometimes when we talk about injuries after the game and we get into Monday and we say, okay, they look to be fairly healthy, and then you get to Tuesday and you get a surprise. Because Mike Tomin did not mention, he just said bumps and bruises associated with football after the game the other day, and that was after we knew that Watt had the hamstring. We knew that the concussion with Deontay Johnson, who, by the way, Mike Tomlin. It's hard to gauge these things, and Mike Tomin wouldn't speculate there, and you can't blame him. He says he is in protocol, and the protocol speaks for itself. He won't speculate there. As he goes through this week, his availability will be determined by that process. So that's the expected response when it comes to Deontay. I would expect Deontay to maybe give it a go today in some capacity, maybe be limited or whatnot, and really probably Thursday will be the big day when it comes to him, and we'll probably won't really get even a better idea about Deontay until maybe Friday's injury report comes out. Just keep your fingers crossed when it comes to there. Deontay, even though players should not be their own doctors and diagnose themselves, was on Twitter after the game the other night and said he would be fine. So take that for what it's worth. We had to report the other day about Derek Watt potentially maybe missing some time with this thing. It sounds like that's going to be the case here, and it does not, at least as of the time of recording this on Wednesday, it doesn't look like they're going to bring anybody from the outside in. They did have Trey Edmonds as one of their 4 protected practice squad players listed by the team on Tuesday. That's a pretty big clue right there, if you ask me. For one thing, that's the first time I think this season that Trey Edmonds has been one of the 4 protected practice squad players, and being as how it doesn't look like anybody from the outside is going to be signed here, I would go ahead and speculate that Trey Edmonds is going to get promoted to the 53 day of the game, the day before the game, whatever whenever they decide to do it, to dress in the place of Derek Watt. And we'll see if the team, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's still the possibility that they could put Derek Watt on IR this week and then make that move that way. But if they don't determine that Watt's hamstring is a 3-week injury, they might not go that route. Why not just use the ability to increase your game day roster by at least 1? And that sounds like, or at least looks like, might be the plan of action there. They protected Deion Kane as well too. That looks like it's a little bit of insurance of maybe if Deontay Johnson does not get squared away, by the time the game day rolls around either. So I guess we're looking at Edmonds potentially being promoted, and in place of Marcus Allen, with him not looking like he's going to suit up, I would guess UG3 gets a helmet.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to get the helmet for the first time this year, and that can also help out on special teams with the assumed loss of Derek Watt. It's funny, I think the Post-Gazette accidentally said TJ Watt was going to be out, so a little snafu there. And then obviously Trey Edmonds is going to help on special teams, and he has played fullback in a pinch before. He's not his role. He's a running back. He just got to learn fullback to give him some extra versatility. But hopefully having those 2 guys, or at least one of those guys, will help you on special teams. Because honestly, Watt as a fullback will be a loss, but he's a bigger loss on special teams because he is the focal point. He does command double teams. He is a 4-phase kind of guy. So not having him out there would definitely be very noticeable on kicks and punts. Yeah,
absolutely. And look, I mean, how confident are you to have Trey Edmonds in there at fullback? I mean, that's just, you're probably not, we might see him, but I hope we don't have to see him a lot. It's just not his specialty.
No, not at all. So maybe a snap or 2 if you really had some sort of short yardage situation that you really felt good about, but that's about it. The team also protected defensive end Henry Mondeau and running back Wendell Smallwood. Those guys have been protected, I think, every week so far this season. Mike Tomlin, speaking of some young guys, talked about Anthony McFarland and said McFarland is more deserving of playing time coming off his NFL debut against the Texans, running for 6 carries, 42 yards, had a catch for 7 yards, and said that McFarland's impressing despite being a young guy in this very weird situation with the pandemic and responding well. So I think, as you mentioned on Monday show, Dave, we're going to see McFarland get a noticeable amount of snaps going forward.
Yeah, I think somewhere between 10 and 15. I mean, that sounds about right in this thing right now. And I think about half. I think you want to try to get him 6 or 7 touches a game on top of it. The key is now, and this is something that we've kind of stated all throughout this thing with him, is once you get him into the game for the first time, you want to get the ball in his hands as a ball carrier. That's first and foremost. Second, you want to show that you're not afraid to use him in the passing game, which they did that twice. Unfortunately, one of those was a drop for him, but at least it shows that you're able to use him in all facets right now. And with that, that means teams have got to add that tape to their pregame, looks, opposing defenses there. And now you can start doing things off of that, A, with the ball in his hands, B, with the ball not in his hands. And they have to start respecting him when he's on the field. So instantly, this situation with McFarland has become 3 times better than it ever was with Dree Archer and Chris Rainey. So, I mean, here we are with this kid, 1 game dressing and actually 2 games dressing, but 1 game dressing and putting the ball in his hands. And we instantly have a better a player, a player more demanding of attention than we ever had with those other two. So I think this is going right as planned, and I think on top of that, you showed enough of some things with Ray McLeod on the field last week as well too, that now you can start building off of that. So I'm excited. I'll be very disappointed if we don't see either some of the same stuff that we saw with McFarland and McLeod against the Texans on Sunday, or if we don't see stuff built off of that. I think it's imperative to really start building on that repertoire. So 10 to 15 snaps, I think right now is not too much to ask when it comes to McFarland until he gives you a reason not to give him that workload. And I don't know how, and I know you've gone over the all 22 with a fine tooth comb like I have at this point. Maybe you have even more than I have at this point. But boy, that McFarland run over there on the right side, I think early in the second half there, if Pouncey gets out there and makes that block on the edge and can get there, we have a nice little one-on-one situation there with McFarland and the safety that would have been fun to watch play out.
Yeah, he's just got great bursts to win the edge. Obviously, the open field ability is pretty unique and definitely unique to this roster that's full of bigger power backs that aren't as explosive with James Conner and Benny Snell. I know that obviously roles get blurred and it's not as clean cut as maybe it used to be 10, 15, 20 years ago. But is it fair to say McFarland has passed Jalen Samuels on the depth chart?
Yeah, I mean, spots. I mean, it's hard to quantify that, I guess. But I don't see. Look, the game. I made sure to look at the other snaps that Samuels was in the game for. And a couple of them were pass protection type situations, I think, and they weren't overly impressive,
Samuels and pass pro?
Right.
Yeah, that's not his thing.
And we knew, I mean, that was one of the things we highlighted right after he was drafted. So if he's not helping you there, and he's not helping you in ball carrier situations, what good is he? That's why I said the other show, I wouldn't be surprised. Somebody emailed us asking, what's the potential of him getting sat down at some point. I think the potential is really, really good because, I mean, he's just a guy, at this point. McFarland gives you a lot more burst, a lot more hit it and go kind of thing. Now, McFarland, we haven't really got to look at his pass protection, but I mean, what little pass protection he did at Maryland, it passed the mustard test according to me. You're not going to put him back there 12 times a game and expect him to do that kind of stuff, But I think I guess that's a long way of saying, yeah, I don't see why you can't look at it that way as him already passing Samuels.
Yeah, I would say short answer, yes. And again, I know that the roles are different where Samuels will play in some of the 2-minute, pass obvious situations that McFarland may not play in. So it's not 100% passing, as you said. You can't quantify it that kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of way. But I just think overall, from a snap count, involvement in the offense standpoint, in normal game circumstances, McFarland has passed Samuels. Will Samuels stay active? I still think he'll stay active for now for a little bit of special teams value, and then having that passing option if his team has to run a 2-minute offense and a half end the game. But McFarland's going to have a greater impact overall in the offense, I think, week in, week out. Yep. All right, Mike Tomlin, and I just want to circle back to Tomlin's comments about the Titans game on Sunday because that's how he led off Tuesday's presser by saying, quote, "We've been given a mandate to prepare as if the game is going to be played and played on time. That is our mentality. We've gone about today's business from a game planning standpoint with that mentality." So Tomlin, as always, very hyper-focused and just working under the assumption they'll play Sunday. That's the only assumption I think you can make right now. You can't assume the game's going to be moved to Monday or to week 7 or whatever. You have to assume it's on Sunday because it currently is Sunday. And until that news changes, that's got to be the team's approach. Okay. And Ben said that as well today. And I think actually to your point earlier that you made about that Ben said before the season, Tomlin told the guys, like, there may be a week where we don't get to practice. And so be prepared for anything and everything. And that's a scenario facing the Steelers this week. Mike Tomlin also talked about Vince Williams. I thought that was a good question about Vince Williams and adding to his value to this team as a pass rusher. And Mike Tomlin, gave Vince Williams a lot of credit for, obviously, he was drafted to be a run stuffer, kind of known to be that thumper, downhill guy, but being that really strong blitzer, to me, potentially the best off-ball blitzer in football, had another sack on Sunday against Houston, has given him extra value and staying power in this league.
Yeah, and what do you call him? What's he call him?
9-on-7 linebacker.
Yeah, well, I don't think we've really heard that mentioned that much. Maybe Tomlin mentioned that before once, but that's something you don't hear.
Yeah, but kudos to Vince. He's playing really well right now and playing a lot. As we said on Monday's show, he's playing basically the same number of snaps and same usage of snaps in terms of playing in base and nickel and early and often as he did in 2018 before Mark Barron came in. I think he's playing really well right now. Anything else Tomlin said, Dave, that you wanted to touch on?
Oh, what else did he say? No, there's a lot of hypotheticals mixed in there that he had nothing to do with. I think that's probably got the most of it, right?
Yeah, I think so too. So we can switch back to a review of the Texans game and going through our all-22 tape on that. Anything stick out to you so far, Dave, as you've kind of gone back through the all-22?
They moved Minka around a lot.
Yeah, I have a good article on. I shouldn't say I'm too confident myself. I have an article on Steelers Depot. I'll let you judge if it's good or not. That talks about the streak, the drought the Steelers safeties are dealing with right now. It's been 10 games since week 10 last year, but really the streak started week 11 of last year that any Steelers safety has failed to record a turnover, a forced fumble, or an interception. That is the longest drought in the entire NFL. All other 31 clubs have had at least one turnover forced by a safety. And that's crazy because this team has Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's a ball hawk and obviously a really talented player. I'm not saying that's a super point of criticism at Minkah. It's partly because, and I wrote this in the article, I've gotten a lot of comments about it, and it's in the article, the teams aren't throwing closer to Minkah Fitzpatrick, but definitely the Steelers are responding to that by trying to play him a little closer line of scrimmage, rotate him down into a robber rat kind of role, and let Sutton or Hilton play in that safety spot. But I know that you're 3-0 and this defense is creating splash, and that's all well and good, but I want to see that drought end for especially Minkah, but for one of these Steelers safeties.
Right, absolutely, because you just can't continue to go through games where teams just know that they can avoid him and still have the kind of the success, especially against the zone type stuff that they did the other day, just by merely staying away from Minkah. And look, this defense isn't as good in the secondary when they're forced to play zone, right? So hopefully they'll be able to get back to more man coverage type situations. And look, I mean, you got to tip your hat to Deshaun Watson as well too, right? Because his style of football predicated that happen, and he made a couple of plays with his feet. I mean, we talked about that third down play the other day that he made, was able to avoid the sack attempt by both Watt and Dupree. That was a pretty big play in the game because that converted, and in the very next play they scored the touchdown there. If they don't convert there, that's just a field goal, in that situation. So explain why this team isn't as good of a zone team as them being a man team.
Well, I just think in general, trying to play more of a spot drop zone defense is really tough to do in today's NFL. That's going to spread you out. It's going to have all kind of weapons, the precision of quarterbacks, the elite quarterback play. We're seeing the mobility of these quarterbacks to extend plays for 5, 6, 7s. A lot of those zone coverages that got chewed up were on plays where Watson held the ball for 4+ seconds, and it's just hard to play spot drop zone coverage. Someone's going to find a window. Someone's going to get open. And I think overall, obviously, the Steelers just have the mentality of and the personnel of playing man defense. The strength of this team is putting money into their corners with Hayden, Steven Nelson, make an aggressive move for Minkah. Edmonds, I think, if you had to say, he's maybe a little better in man than zone. Obviously, he's not great in either. But just overall, this team has been built around, from going from the heavy Dick LeBeau cover 3 days to a more cover 1, 2-man Keith Butler days. And I think that's just the attitude of this team. And so when you're forced to play zone against these mobile quarterbacks, you're just worse off because you have some corners that are capable in man that just aren't able to play as much man coverage. And I think that makes you worse as a team from a what you do well standpoint.
I think overall the tackling was good by the defense. They just gave up too many down the field plays, Well, what else stuck out to me? I thought for the most part the run fits and all were good. Vince obviously good playing downhill. I thought Bush overall played a good game against the run. I thought Cam a couple of back-to-back plays in the third quarter. I thought Cam did a good job against the run. A much better game than probably Tuitt's best game. Not that he's played bad in the first two, but I thought Tuitt was a lot more noticeable on the All-22 than he was in the first two games. Highsmith had a good run stop rep that I think we talked about the other day. What did you see on the goal line rep with him?
Yeah, it is still a little tough to figure out, but the more I watch, the more I think he was supposed to have contain on that play and be the force defender and got washed down inside.
That's what I thought originally as well, too.
Yeah, so lesson learned, tough moment there for sure, but got to keep that outside arm free. But as you said, he made that play later in the game and got the 1-yard tackle for a loss. Yeah, the run defense, I know we're talking about the secondary and the pass rush, and I'm talking about safeties and turnovers, but let's give a little love to this run defense. The Steelers have allowed, I think, 162 yards rushing through the first three games. That is the fewest yards allowed through the first three games in team history, and they've had some really good run defenses over the years. And so Giants, 29 yards rushing, Texans 29 yards rushing, better in the second half against Denver. So they really force these teams to become very one-dimensional, only win through the air, and that's usually a recipe for success and how you get to a 3-0 record.
Boy, you're going to really be tested with that this week, right? I mean, it's almost like going back to week one, but with a kind of a different back, too. Obviously, Derrick Henry is not a make you miss, he's a run you over kind of back, and has been really successful about it as well too. And once again, I think this kind of the schedule, assuming the Steelers can pass this test, kind of helps set them up for the schedule progresses nicely, and with the type of offenses that they're facing, all to kind of get you best ready for the first meeting against the Baltimore Ravens. I think because they obviously like to kind of rely on those bigger backs, if you will, the Ravens, and getting an offense like Henry knocked out 4 weeks into the season and having that kind of power running test will be good. Now, obviously, the Ravens offense also features a dynamic, kind of a mix of the two when it comes to an athletic quarterback such as Jackson and all like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was going to say that I thought Lamar Jackson made an interesting comment after the Chiefs game, where he was saying that the Chiefs really contained Jackson, and he said the last team to do that was Tennessee, and had kind of a similar game plan overall. So. Yeah, Tennessee, of course, will be a great team. Great test. Derrick Henry leading the league in rushing yards. They're going to be a power run team. They're going to get downhill. I think Mike Tomlin said almost those exact words in his press conference on Tuesday. So it'll be the Steelers' best versus the Titans' best. But if the Steelers' run defense can be as strong as I think it is, and it will continue to be, then the Titans are really going to have to win through the air, put their trust in Ryan Tannehill. A.J. Brown's status is still, I think, up in the air right now. I'd say wait for the injury report, but I don't think we're getting an injury report based on the lack of practice for Tennessee to make this week even weirder. But, hats off to the Steelers' run defense. It's a mentality. It starts with Keith Butler and the approach with Mike Tomlin. It's a personnel thing with Hayward and Tuitt and Vince. I think Bush is playing good run defense, and run defense is an 11-man job. So the safeties have to come down and be able to fill the alley. Cornerbacks have to crack and replace and get involved there. I think Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson are really strong corners against the run. They're physical. They sacrifice their body. They make big plays. Mike Hilton, of course, one of the best run-stopping nickel corners in football. He may not get to play as much this weekend if the Titans play more two tight end sets and some bigger personnel. We'll see what happens there. I think Mike Tomin made a reference to that. But overall, run defense to me is an 11-man job, and all 11 guys, all rotational guys, are playing at a really high level right now. All right, Dave, switching over to the offense side of the football, going through our All-22 film review. Chukwuma Okorafor, obviously we praised him, and rightfully so, for the job he did and the job the whole Steelers offense did to contain J.J. Watt's 4 tackles, 1 solo, no quarterback hits, no tackles for loss, no sacks. A really good game all around. I thought, looking back at the tape, Okorafor maybe didn't do quite as well as I thought on first blush, but overall did well and certainly got some good help from David DeCastro and the rest of the team. Yeah,
would you agree with kind of my initial analysis? It was okay in pass pro, but the run game, blocking probably where most of his issues were?
Yeah, there was definitely some more meat left on the bone in terms of a run blocker than he was in pass pro. But again, overall, I thought the communication was clean. They passed stunts off on that side of the line better than they did on the left side of the line, and just overall happy with that performance for a young guy that's an unknown and come in like that and play pretty well is hats off to him.
Yeah, and they didn't help. They helped him some, but they didn't help him all that much, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, sometimes they were covered up to Castro, and so the Castro can't help. There were a little bit of chips and stuff like that, but yeah, it wasn't like 2018 against Denver where they gave him all the hope in the world against Vaughn in his first career start.
And on top of that, Watt didn't move around like I thought he was going to move around.
Yeah, I saw him move around a little bit, but probably less than what I expected. I don't have any charting on that to totally back that up. But overall, yeah, I guess they wanted to just – because obviously on paper you feel like Watt versus Okorafor was the matchup you wanted to exploit, but just never really had the success that Houston envisioned, I guess.
Right, and I wonder if that groin – I wonder if he's a better – right now Watt's kind of a better player first half than he is second half. He didn't seem to have much juice in him in that second half, at least from what I saw. And, he has been kind of dealing with a groin issue. So I wonder how much, and look, I'm not trying to diminish what Okorafor did, because there were still a few plays there where Watt was swimming over people and, just doing what he normally does and all like that. But, bottom line is it was a good game by Okorafor. It wasn't as spectacular as maybe as how it was painted initially.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair to say. Again, going back to the tape, Ebron thought played well. Even as a run blocker, there were some positive moments there. Overall, the gap schemes in the run game, I'm going to try to break that down for tomorrow morning in a video to really show the success, as you mentioned, and I've talked about several times, ability to pull left guard or right guard really helps this run game and the gap schemes work even better, and they run some RPOs off of that too. So I think it was a really good overall complement between pulling left, pulling right, and then passing off of it that's going to keep defenses on their toes.
Absolutely, they could have done a little bit more as far as I'm concerned there. But it was good to see that. It was good to see Pouncey on the move, both directions in the game, and overall, I thought overall the line played well.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. Any other thoughts you want to cover from the All-22?
What'd you see on some of those deep passes?
On the Steelers' deep passes?
Yeah.
I thought Washington had some good releases. Ben was just missing them a little bit. And some of it was just from what the defense was giving Ben, and some deep shots, even in some 3rd and 1 and short yardage type situations. But yeah, I think it'll come. I think the chemistry will improve, and I think as Ben continues to shake off the rust, and hopefully he's getting pretty close to that point right now. I imagine that he is. That those plays are going to come more often.
One of those, the first of the two back-to-back deep balls to Deontay Johnson. That was supposed to be an out and up, it looked like, and the cornerback never bid on that. And the other one, I don't know what Ben was thinking, because I don't think on the back-to-back on the second one of those back-to-backs, Johnson I don't think was ever open on that one. The Claypool one down the middle of the field that drew the pass interference penalty. Really, I didn't see anything there that would suggest that was maybe a good decision to make there. I bet he wishes he had the one back from Washington back in the end zone, because, man, more than anything, at least we saw that Washington can get separation, in that situation, because he definitely against two guys, two defenders there, he had a full step and a half, it looked like. That ball was obviously just a little bit too long. Trying to play through my head a lot of the other deep ones I think were to Claypool. What do you think about the drops?
Yeah, again, looking back at there were the two back-to-back that forced us to settle for a field goal. I think that was in the 3rd quarter, and the one to Washington was definitely behind. I would just put that as a bad throw, but still a catchable ball, so I don't think anyone looked too good there, Ben or Washington, and then Connor had the drop on that and kind of extended the play the next time around. So, again, yeah, it has been an issue, kind of has popped up with a lot of these guys, a lot of popcorn with the drops, other than really Juju I think you've seen drops by most of these guys, but again, it'll come too. Not something I'm particularly worried about right now. But overall, the offense I think is doing well. I thought Ben, again, his pocket presence has improved. I thought week one one of the worst parts about Ben, I thought, week one, although he played a really good game overall, but his pocket presence was poor. He was bailing on clean pockets, kind of running himself into sacks. Broke that down in our sack breakdown. I think that's been one of the bigger changes I've seen from him week one to week three. It's just kind of more comfort in the pocket and doing the little hitches and stepping up and finding space and not running himself into pressure and sacks that I saw against the Giants. So overall, need to validate it, I guess, but I think Ben's playing well and definitely taking steps forward, and the run game has been excellent. I think it's more varied and, like I said, more complementary. As I said earlier, with the gap schemes and being able to run RPOs off of that, I thought overall RPOs were really effective against the Texans. They were running them on third down, on 2-point plays, at the 4-minute drive to close it out. So overall, I like the game plan for the Steelers. I think they're running a lot of things quick, efficiently, effectively, and more often than not, putting the ball in Ben's hands and letting him make the right decisions for this offense to get them in the best spot possible.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
All right, Dave. That might be basically it for the All-22 film review. Again, Marcus Allen on special teams, to go over that quickly. I thought Allen had a good game. It's disappointing he's likely to miss the Titans game this weekend. And again, missing Derek Watt. So there'll be some key special teams players that may not be available. So as you said earlier, guys like UG3, Trey Evans potentially are going to have to step up into those roles. Thought Colquitt as a punter was, again, meh, not great, not terrible. Claypool continues to do well as a gunner, although, as you said, James Pierre replaced him in the second half, with Claypool getting so many snaps on offense following Deontay Johnson's injury. And Boswell, shout out to Chris Boswell, because he's been excellent so far.
It feels like we're missing something on some all 22 here or something.
What we mentioned, or forgot to mention, I remember this from other show, the Hall of Honor. I don't think we touched on the Hall of Honor from last Friday. Let me actually pull up the list to make sure I get every single name here. But the Steelers on Friday evening inducted their, what would this be, fourth class, I think, of the Hall of Honor. Now 41 members of that class, and 5 names getting inducted this year, all on defense. They are Troy Polamalu, James Ferrier, Greg Lloyd, Mike Wagner, and Dwight White. So all 5 players, all 5 defensive players, and all 5 who all 5 have a Super Bowl ring. No, I don't think Greg Lloyd has the ring, but 4 of the 5 do, and a really good class, of course, that are being inducted this year by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I guess they'll try to find out when maybe they can have the induction ceremony. What'd you think about the kind of the open letter that Troy Polamalu released the other day?
I thought that was fantastic. It's not often we just hear from Troy. Just kind of his more kind of laid back, private style, which is totally fine, totally respected. But to hear some of the stories about Mike Logan and Ike Taylor apparently doing naked sit-ups in his hotel room the first time he ever met Ike Taylor, some really cool stories there. Talking about just the life in Pittsburgh, some talks with I think Dan Rooney involved in there and his agent and things like that. So yeah, that was really an awesome letter that he penned, and hopefully we get to see some sort of speech or some sort of in-person induction sometime this year.
Yeah, and he is even admitted that he's kind of not totally upset that his Hall of Fame induction got pushed back because of he was not ready. I think he dreads the kind of the speech part of it, but I imagine by the time that rolls around, he's such a cerebral guy still. He's a thinking man's thinker, right? If that's a proper terminology there. But I bet by the time that finally does roll around, he'll have one heck of a speech that we all probably could learn something from.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. Hopefully that's sooner than later. Yeah, Rooney said they hope to do something in person. I know that they're making a push for fans to be in the stands. I think they're talking to some PA local officials about that. I don't know how everything that's happening in Tennessee may impact those things, but we'll keep you posted. But congrats to all those guys. And James Ferrier, just a really underrated guy in Steelers history, and the best free agent pickup Kevin Colbert's ever had.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, when you go back and you think about, former first-round draft pick, he was and really wasn't kind of utilized well in with the Jets in that defense, and they kind of got him for a song there, if you will. And boy, he really took to that kind of that two-gap in defense, and it really played more to his strengths, if you will. I mean, he was a tackling machine for years, and the leader of that defense. And I mean, we're talking obviously pre Lawrence Timmons years, obviously as well too, and a lot of that run and chase and hit kind of stuff. And he was the quintessential 3-4 inside linebacker, if you will, during that era there. Obviously, never going to be one that's talked about, probably 50 years from now, but someone who should be remembered when it comes to Steelers lore, because once again, to date, even to this date, and here we are, 20 years into Kevin Colbert's tenure, if you will, the single best probably free agent addition Kevin Colbert's had.
Yeah, not that there's been a lot of them, but he's certainly, I think, number one. You got Ryan Clark. We'll see where Hayden and Nelson end up. But and also underrated nickname, Potsy. It's a really good nickname. Do we know the origin story of Potsy for James Ferrier? I have no idea where it came from.
I've heard the story a few times, and I can't recall it off the top of my head. I'll have to go back and refresh my own memory on that of why and how and when.
All right, fair enough. Another good nickname, Dwight White, Mad Dog, and the story of him, of course, being part of that steel curtain, had pneumonia, lost 20 pounds, comes back for the Super Bowl against Minnesota, records the first points in Steelers Super Bowl history with sacking Frank Tarkenton or whatever the case was to record a safety there in their eventual 16-6 win to win their first Super Bowl. So Dwight White being part of that steel curtain. Underrated man. Obviously, we think about steel curtain, we think about Joe Green, L.C. Greenwood, Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, but Dwight White, a really core part of the Steelers defensive line.
That's right. It had to do with his pot belly. His parents partly due to his pot belly as a kid.
No, all right, good stuff there. And then Greg Lloyd. I know, is Greg Lloyd like one of your favorite players? It feels like Greg Lloyd is high on that list for Dave Bryan.
Oh, look, I mean, anytime you had those edge defenders, and as far as mid '90s players go, the Kevin Greens, obviously. Yeah, you like guys that got out to the quarterback and had kind of that no nonsense attitude and the old avoid Lloyd and I wasn't hired for my disposition T-shirt and all like that. Now, unfortunately, I think I jinxed Greg Lloyd during his career because I didn't obviously I haven't been to born and raised in Northwest Florida. The opportunities to go to many Steeler games weren't there. Overall, but I did go to the opening of the 1990, I don't remember, 4 or 5, I forget exactly, the season that they opened up, the Steelers opened up in Jacksonville, and that was, early Jacksonville franchise on top of it there. That was the game that he tore his knee up in. So, but I mean, look, when it came to defensive players that could get after the quarterback there and kind of underrated coming out of the college that he came out of there. Definitely one of my favorite, you start naming off top 50 Steeler players, he's going to be on that list all time.
And then the last name on the list, Mike Wagner, again, part of that Steelers steel curtain back from 71 to 80. He stayed local after his Pittsburgh days. I think he's done some coaching in the area. I think he was doing some financial banking stuff in the Pittsburgh area. I don't have a whole lot of specific memories of Mike Wagner. Obviously, Dave, do you have anything that comes to mind?
As a kid, he was always the other guy that played opposite Donnie Shell. I mean,
kind of a Ryan Clark Detroit kind of
deal.
Yeah,
but I mean, obviously, I think he was there, a little bit earlier and all like that. Mm-hmm. But no, not a lot of memories overall, other than you knew his face when you saw it on a football card or something like that. Growing up. I mean, obviously a better look. You get lost in those defenses back then.
Right.
And Donnie Shell almost did, through there. I'm trying to remember when exactly he was. Also, do you know where Fort Valley State is?
Fort Valley State. Obviously, I know the college, but I don't know exactly where it is geographically. That's a good question. Wagner was drafted in 71, though.
Right, 71. So obviously a little bit earlier than Donnie Shell, right?
Yeah. Shell would have been part of that 74 class,
right.
Greatest draft class in Steelers history. And I did not realize this, so I looked up the numbers. Wagner led the NFL in interceptions with 8 in 1973, so 36 in his career, all with Pittsburgh. I think it's the other thing. Other than Ferrier and Lloyd, Troy, Wagner, and White all had their entire career spent with Pittsburgh, which I think is pretty special and pretty cool to see that. Ferrier, of course, spent most of his career with Pittsburgh and is remembered as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
And, L.C. Greenwood gets kind of forgotten constantly,
Mm-hmm.
as well, and that tended to happen there. You had your Mean Joes and your Mel Blunts and your Jack Hams and your Jack Lambert. I mean, that just goes to show you how deep and how great that defense was. That look, I mean, let's face it, Donnie. If not for the Centennial class, God bless them, would we be talking about Donnie Shell being in the Hall of Fame? Going in.
Right.
I mean, well deserving, and I think I've made that clear over the years. But just there is, like it or not, there is still a bias of some sort to most of the Hall of Fame voters and all, because they think, well, look at how many guys they've got in, from that era and all. I mean, we can't put the whole team in, but can you? I mean, guys like Wagner. I haven't spent a lot of time going back and looking at and you mentioned the eight interceptions that year. Maybe his career needs more dissection, but even so, without another kind of Centennial situation there, it's going to be hard for a guy like him to get into Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't see that path going forward.
Same with L.C. Greenwood, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's sad. It's unfortunate because the players should be judged on the merit of what they did, regardless of how many teammates did or did not get into Canton. But what can you do? Fort Valley State, by the way, is in Georgia, in Fort Valley, Georgia. So there you go. That's where Greg Lloyd went to school, for those wondering. I was a little surprised, and not that all these guys were deserving, of course, but no Heath Miller. I thought Heath Miller was going to get in this year in the Hall of Honor.
I thought the same thing. But when you look at when you go back, you look at the list and Heath Miller will get in there. I mean, we both know that. It just didn't happen this time. So when you look at the people they did put in, you got to draw the line somewhere this year as far as numbers go. It's understandable. Heath Miller at probably next go around or next two go arounds he'll be in. So yeah. I'm not worried about that. When you look at and I don't know how you feel about this. Career sack leaders list in the Steelers. It depends on who writes the article sometimes on Steelers.com or puts it on or posts it on the website. Do you go back pre sack being an official stat?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I saw that the other day that they have Joe Green on the sack list because they have their own calculation. But I always go off of when sacks became official in '82 because anything before that is inconsistent. So that's just my approach. But I
think at some point franchises owe it to their players to go back and build their own list. Because let's face it, right now, depending on the list that you look at, I think T.J. Watt's now number 9 overall. All right, but then. What happens if you put guys like L.C. Greenwood and Joe Green on the list? Which they obviously deserve, and Dwight White. And when you think about L.C. Greenwood, 73 and a half sacks according to the Steelers.
Wow.
That's third. That's 7.5 more than Joe Green at 66. Joe Green's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's just one of those things that speaks to some of these players probably not going to get the due that they should. Now, Donnie Shell, because of interceptions being easy to calculate, that helped his cause, right? And is easy to go back and then also put him in eras too that minus is still curtain. And that's one of the things that I try to do during, trying to make the campaign for Donnie Shell to be in there. Well, he's now in. It's going to be a lot harder, I think, as time progresses and people like me start dying off to get guys like L.C. Greenwood in,
Right, that's a good point. Yeah, had the sacks been officially registered, and if voters and potential selection committee members saw that Greenwood had 73 and a half, would that change their opinion? Because other than that, there isn't a whole lot to go off of statistically for a guy like Greenwood, other than all pros and Pro Bowls and stuff like that.
The game books are there, and I would think that most of the tape's there, right?
Yeah, that my guess would just be the concern about making sure you could find everything and do it reliably and all that. But you'd think that would be a project that someone in the NFL would be doing to get to backtrack those stats, but I guess not.
I mean, I would think that, I mean, with as much money as the league makes, you could have dedicated people sitting in the NFL studios there. I mean, in the NFL Films archives, right? Going
Mm-hmm.
game by game on this stuff. I think the league owes it to their players to do this. Heck, even if it was privately, don't tell me you couldn't get a non-profit organization started to fund such a thing.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm sure you could. I'm sure the NFL could if they wanted to. I guess the desire probably isn't there. And the question would be, and I don't mean to maybe have a fallacy here, but like, where do you draw the line? How far back do you go?
I think modern era and Super Bowl era.
So like post-merger, so like 1970.
Yeah, because I mean obviously I would think that you have the tape. I would like to think that you have most of the tape from going back to '66. I don't know that for sure. I'm guessing here, but I mean obviously if you couldn't watch it, I mean if you couldn't watch every play, I understand having the equality there. But I mean, if the Steelers can obviously put together a list like this, why couldn't other franchises? Would be my that would be my main argument. My main argument, I guess, would be why are the Steelers putting out a list like this if other teams can't?
Mm-hmm. That's a fair point. Yeah, I don't have a good answer to that. But regardless, again, for the Hall of Honor, all 5 men very deserving, and hopefully those guys can have their true induction at some point this year, or if not, we'll see them next year.
Keith Willis, 59 sacks.
Yeah, Willis. I mean, he had a couple of big years where he was having double-digit sacks, and he had some good defensive linemen back in the day that we don't talk about too much. Joel Steed, Gary Dunn, Keith Willis. I mean, there's some guys that got after it.
All
right, Dave. Let's just go to reader emails here. I think we've kind of covered the all 22. This show would be a little bit longer. Obviously, we don't have the beat writer on today, but I think that's all right. We'll do a little bit shorter show and get to some emails and close things out. All right, bit of breaking news here for Steelers Nation. And we talked earlier in the show, of course, the big story about the outcome and decision for Sunday's game between the Steelers and Titans. We do know now that this game will be postponed, according to ESPN, and they confirmed by the NFL. The Steelers-Titans game scheduled for Sunday at 1 o'clock will be postponed. It appears, according to Ian Rappaport, I think the NFL confirmed this as well, that the goal is to move it to either Monday or Tuesday. So the game appears to be being played this week, but will not be played as scheduled on Sunday afternoon.
And here's the official statement I just got in from the National Football League. The Steelers-Titans game, originally scheduled for Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, will be rescheduled to allow additional time for further daily COVID-19 testing and to ensure the health and safety of players, coaches, and game personnel. Details on the new game date and time on either Monday or Tuesday will be announced as soon as possible. So it looks like an either Monday or Tuesday we will have Steelers-Titans, not Sunday.
All right, obviously Monday night would be the best for a sense of normalcy since 1949. Only one other game has ever been played on a Tuesday in the NFL. That was 2010 Eagles-Vikings. That was postponed. I think a Monday night game scheduled for Tuesday because of a blizzard. So yeah, this is unprecedented territory. Pretty crazy. We'll keep you posted. Not entirely sure what the criteria will be to allow it to happen on Monday. I believe the Titans had an additional 4th positive test as well. That was kind of like the final move that made the NFL postpone this one back. But yeah, this is going to be a wild week, Dave.
Yeah, it is. It's gonna make for a short week next week.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the big concern for sure, especially if it's Tuesday, because the Steelers are going to play. Who is at Philadelphia coming off this week. And so that's going to give the Eagles a clear advantage.
Right. So whatever advantage, maybe they look. The thing is, at least it looks like they're going to get this game played. Hopefully the Titans will be able to get some practice in as well, at some point through this as well, too. So now we'll sit and we'll wait and see if it's going to be Monday or Tuesday. So it's day to day, hour by hour.
Yeah, I hope it's Monday. Obviously, I think everyone's hoping that it's Monday, but and we do not know when the NFL will officially set a date for this game, because right now this game is now officially, now that it's been postponed, up in the air in terms of what day it's going to be, and that's going to have a lot of impact for how the team wants to prepare and schedule. So we'll know. We'll let you know when we find out.
All right, shall we get to some podcast emails?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get to some emails and close out the show.
David from Eastern PA writes in, hello, David and Alex. First-time emailer. Good deal. The defense has struggled to get off the field on third downs at times so far this season, which has frustrated me more than it probably should at this point. My question is, are there things they are doing differently that are allowing opposing offenses to take advantage on third downs as opposed to early downs, or is it just my result-based frustration getting the best of me? Really enjoy the rapport you two have developed on the show. Thanks for all the content. Thanks for that, David in Eastern PA. Alex, you want to take a stab at that?
Thank you, David. Let me pull up where the Steelers are at in third down percentage because I don't know that number offhand. If I can find it, I may not be able to as quickly as I want to. Opponents on third down are at 44%. That's fourth best or fourth worst in the NFL. I'm not entirely sure how. That's red zone. I'm reading that number wrong. I think the Steelers are 15th in third down defense. I would just say that the Steelers have been playing more zone coverage on third down, especially against some of these more mobile quarterbacks. Daniel Jones can move a little bit. Of course, Deshaun Watson is a very mobile quarterback. And so when you're playing, more of the spot drop zone defense, you're more vulnerable to giving up some of those plays, windows opening and things like that. So the Steelers have not always been able to play their strengths on third down, which is man coverage, playing more zone, and that's probably created to some of the middling success on get-off downs.
And there's been a couple of these, especially in that game a couple of weeks ago, give up those third and longs. Those are the most frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some PIs too, of course, in the Denver game as well. So a combination of factors. Nothing to be incredibly concerned about. The numbers don't scream any major red flags, but hopefully things that can be improved on throughout the season.
It's one of those things that bears watching moving forward right now. I see where he's got. Look, it's really frustrating when you see the 3rd and 12s or whatever. Like against Denver, they gave up a couple more of those long ones as well too. Those are the ones that really get you upset. Not so much the 3rd and 3s or something like that. Which obviously you want to try to get off the field as much as possible. The good news is they got a lot. They seemingly the changes that they made in the second half against the Texans. It's better to come out of a better last half than it go in the opposite direction there. So things were moving in the right direction, and now we'll see. What are the Texans on third down? Do you know?
Offensively, I don't know.
I'll have that here for you in just a moment here. They are 42.5% on third down, which I think is tied for 17th. So it's Midland versus Midland kind of right now when you look at per ranking wise, right?
Yeah.
Not so good against not so good.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Again, I think the key for whenever this Titans game gets played is to contain Derrick Henry, force some third and longs, and that should provide you some level of third down success.
All right, let's move along here. Brett writes in, I know that we spent a lot of time this offseason trying to adjust down the expectations for this rookie class with no first-round pick, no offseason program, limited training camp, and no preseason. I know you have been preaching patience and low expectations for this class. However, I have been impressed at the level of the rookie contribution this early. Consider that Claypool is a regular rotation at receiver and getting targets. Highsmith is already in the outside linebacker rotation and making contributions. Dotson has made major contributions starting one game and finishing another, and is almost certainly the backup at both guard positions. McFarland provided some impact in game 3 and looks like he's now part of the regular. Boy, Brett, can you make these any longer? Pierre is making special teams contributions, and while Carl Davis has not got a helmet yet, he does have the more unlikely achievement of forcing Big Dan off the roster. Okay, here's his questions he finally gets to. Are you surprised how fast the contributions have come? Because I am. Number 2, what do you make of this development? Is the class just better than most, or did we make too much of the offseason and no preseason? Well, Dotson's not playing if DeCastro's not hurt, and if Wisniewski's not hurt. That's one. Claypool's not playing 60 snaps in a game if Deontay Johnson's not banged up.
Right.
Has Claypool gotten a little bit more snaps than maybe initially thought? Yeah, but by how much? I mean, we didn't think he was going to sit on his hands right out of the chute. I was thinking maybe 8 or 9 snaps a game for him initially.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, I would just say that, and I said that, you have to keep expectations low, but I also wrote shortly before the season began that inevitably, and we saw this with Terrell Edmonds in 2018, Deontay Johnson last year, that some rookie was going to have to step up because an injury, poor performance, whatever the case was, that thrust a rookie in action. Kevin Dotson's a great example of that. So I'm not necessarily surprised that a couple of these guys are playing more than we expected because that's just life in the NFL. But I am pleased with how well they're playing, and I think they're just really good players overall. But I think the fact the Steelers drafted a lot of seniors, Claypool, Highsmith, Dotson, all being seniors, a little bit more physically, mentally mature and ready for the NFL, probably help that development and deal with getting thrown into the action under these circumstances.
I would say Claypool's probably played and throw out the fact that he was filling in for injury, probably about 7 more snaps per game than what I probably envisioned. Okay, so 7. Okay. So he's played. Let's say he's played about 20. He was on course to play maybe 25 more snaps than what I envisioned. All right, McFarland, I think he's on pace. I mean, what are we talking about here? A kid that's played 10 snaps?
Yeah, we said 75 to 100 total touches, and I'm not sure exactly the pace he's on, but I imagine he'll probably land somewhere around there.
All right, so let's say 7. Let's say he gets 10 touches per game in the next 13. Be 13 games. That's 130. I don't think he's going to see that, barring injury. I think it's a little much to ask for 10 touches a game. So let's say it's 7 per game, right? What's 7 times 13?
I'll put my math skills to the test here late in the show. 91.
All right. Didn't we say roughly around 100 snaps or 100 touches for him?
Yeah. So give him how many touches he had yesterday or Sunday. Yeah, it'd be about 100 for the season.
All right. And what was kind of our thoughts on Highsmith? Going to see some action. I'm not ready for him to play 20 snaps a game yet, though.
Yeah, you just didn't know how early he'd be in the rotation, but maybe a little bit earlier than I thought. But again, I think that they've taken some really smart, well-conditioned guys. Again, conditioning, the number one things for these rookies. Claypool, Highsmith have been ready to step up for the challenge. And so when you take some really well-conditioned, smart seniors, those guys are probably more ready to play than some of the underclassmen this team usually drafts.
And Carlos Davis has not played any snaps. And Pierre, special teams is special teams. Obviously you like to see some of these young guys maybe step up. And I think everybody's a little bit surprised that he's getting that he got a early season helmet, but he's not playing any defense. Dotson's not seeing the field unless those injuries happen. So, and he's back to being a backup now. So I don't think we're too far off of kind of what our expectations were. You can't predict injuries, right?
Right, but kudos to how well those guys have played when they've been put into those expander roles, because they have responded really well under difficult circumstances.
And I think we praised Claypool for the fact that the guy really, really came in ready to go, and hit the way he treated the offseason away before the start of training camp. Him talking about working out and reviewing, the playbook with his wife, his personal trainer or coach or whatever, position coach and all like that. I think that showed at training camp, and had the coaches have confidence in him. So I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think injuries have played into this. I think Claypool surprising us with his preparedness. And then I think McFarland's kind of on pace, and I think Highsmith is on pace as well, too.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Dave.
All right, let's see here. Zach Jorgensen writes in, hello from Salt Lake City, not too far from me, I guess. Salt Lake City, Utah. You guys are very best in the business. I'm a proud ad-free supporter. We appreciate that, Zach. On the last podcast, you mentioned that the Steelers secondary is better built to play man defense as opposed to zone. I was curious, what features make our secondary better at man defense, and what features make our secondary better built for a zone defense?
Well, I think obviously just and I touched on this earlier, the amount of money you poured into these guys. You aren't paying Hayden and Nelson and trading the first for Minka to play a lot of soft zone coverage. I think that these guys are Steven Nelson was a man corner at Kansas City. They played as much man defense as anybody whenever he came over, before he came over from Pittsburgh. So I think you just have guys that are good athletes overall, can cover, are smart with good ball skills, make plays on the football, and you just draft a lot of speed and a lot of high end talent. So I guess I can't give you a 100% exact answer. Obviously, you have a mix of zone and man, and I think they're capable of playing both. But whenever you invest in the secondary the way that you invested it, you're doing that to be a man defense as opposed to a zone defense.
He goes on to write, and just for fun, the Steelers favored by 1 as of placing my bet yesterday should be the stone cold lock of the season for the Steelers. Titans defense has allowed 422 yards per game and most recently 30 points to the mediocre offenses of Jacksonville and Minnesota. Steelers front will no doubt keep the Titans run game in check. The only thing that concerns me is I'm so confident in my bet. Never a good thing. Thanks guys. Take care. Appreciate the email there, Zach. Let's see, going on down the list here. I think we got, let's see, UG. Okay, here's one from Jack Hollerich. Didn't the Steelers try UG3 at fullback in camp last year? No, he's thinking of these other 6 round, the outside linebacker.
Sutton Smith.
Sutton Smith. That's who Jack's thinking of. He's also a decent special team player. UG3 has to be a better option than Rosie. No, not at fullback. He's not. UG3 has. You're thinking of Sutton Smith was the linebacker that got fullback reps in camps. And Sutton Smith, is Sutton Smith even on a practice squad right now?
I don't think
he's
so.
Obviously not on the Steelers practice squad, but
right. I think he fell out of the league, but I'm not 100% sure.
All right, Jack. So that's look. I mean, I think we're starting to see the picture here that Trey Edmonds, in some form or fashion, might be on this 53 or 54 man roster, I should say, come the weekend, and we'll wait and see if he gets any. They might move some of these guys around, a snap or two of McDonald in the backfield, maybe. McDonald wasn't bad on the move, by the way, and he's never really been bad on the move. The issue that I've taken with his blocking since what was it, early 2018, I guess, was him on the end of the line of scrimmage. He looked good running that counter, with the pulling guards and all. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more of that. It'd be interesting to see if they use McDonald in the backfield with Watt out, maybe as a lead fullback or something.
Yeah, McDonald got a snap as a traditional fullback when Watt went out Sunday, and Tyson Alualu, he can play nose tackle, play a little fullback in goal line situations. Maybe they throw him out there for a snap. I kind of doubt it.
All right, Jeff Berg. Hey, we're 3-0, still making each game painful in classic Steelers fashion. I wonder if you had the run success rates on 3rd and 1 with Ben at the helm in the last 2 seasons. It seems to me that it's the hardest yard to gain for us, but I could be overreacting and maybe we're fine compared to the rest of the league. It's like 3rd and long for our defense, which is a stat I'd love to know how we stack up against the rest of the league. If it's 3rd and 12 or more, it seems like offense we're facing has at worst 50% to convert. We have a knack for making the easy difficult. Everybody get the ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. It's totally worth it. Thanks for that, Jeff. I wish Pro Football Reference hadn't moved to StatHead right now because I'm still trying to learn to get around on StatHead.
Yeah, it's not easy to do. They've made it a lot worse.
They have made it a lot harder to pull up stats on the fly. I'm an old man. I don't like change. And I think,
I'm with you.
And I think Alex is a lot younger than I am, and he doesn't like change either. I can't pull those stats up for you on the fly, but we'll look at them. I'll tell you this. Last year, Benny Snell was better at, obviously, short yardage than any of them. But 3rd down and short 1 or 2 yards wasn't great last year, I think, as a whole, if I remember correctly.
They were like the worst in the league.
Right. It wasn't great. And I think the successes had came from Benny Snell, if memory serves me. Not off to a super start this year, right? Jalen Samuels fail, and McFarland had a fail, right? And then
yeah.
So not a great start there. So yeah, that's something that they need to. And now didn't Connor pick up the 4th and fourth and a yard or whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have the stats for 3rd and 1. I don't have it for 4th down included. Steelers are 3 of 5, 60%. We just mentioned the 2 failures, Jalen Samuels and Anthony McFarland, and that is the bottom third-ish of the league, obviously with a pretty small sample size, but it was not the basement they were in last year. So long ways to go. We'll see the season with more opportunities, but Steelers at 60% on 3rd and 1 right now.
Yeah, that needs to be 80, 90, ish, if you will. Let's see. JJ writes in, hey guys, JJ from Lexington. A question. Did we answer this? I think we answered this the other day about the 11 personnel and who was in the slot and how they moved those guys around and all like that.
Yeah,
So I think we're caught up with that. All right, this probably feels like a clunky episode of the podcast put together. It's probably because it is.
More than usual.
More than usual. We've had a lot of things going on this morning here. It's kind of played a part in this as well too. So hopefully it sounds right when I put it all together here. Thank you for the patience. We'll make sure that the Friday show is extremely good. Hopefully David Beauclair is going to be part of that show as well too. We're going to interview him a couple hours from now and make that part of the show. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site for 1 calendar year for $25, you can go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, and sign up that way. Appreciate all the support we've been getting that way. Thanks to our listeners. Thanks for a fantastic month of September, everybody. We really, Alex and I, Matthew, Mark, see all the contributors on the site. Really appreciate that. It's a fantastic month of September for Steelers Depot and for the podcast as well. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.